Hi, thank you for joining me today. Today is February 7th, 2026, and we are going to explore some notable duels that occurred in history. On this day, on February 7th, 1837, General Felix Huston challenged Commanding General Sidney Johnston to a duel near the Lavaca River. As a result of this duel, Johnston was shot through the hip by Huston. Looking back in history, the practice of dueling goes back hundreds of years. Originally used as a form of determining guilt, it was suggested that the loser would be judged by God as the guilty party. If the loser survived, he or she would suffer punishment according to the law. These judicial duels would be ordered by the judge, who determined the location, time, and arms to be used. Each contender would submit a surety bond to guarantee their appearance. When the time came, the throwing down of a gauntlet signaled the beginning of the duel, and the opponent accepted it by picking it up. This practice was discontinued about the 16th century. Later, and more widely known, private duels were used in the form of defending a man's honor, or a woman's honor, because women clashed in duels too. A friend of the participants, or a second, would coordinate the details between the duelers or principals. The second would choose the location, ensure fairness, select or inspect weapons, and even try to settle disputes before any shots were fired. The goal was to defend honor, not necessarily to kill. Many duels ended at first blood. Duels were fought with swords, and then later pistols or swords. During the years between the 16th and 19th centuries, laws against the practice were established, and participants were found guilty of murder if the duel resulted in the death of a combatant. These didn't stop all duels from occurring, however. Perhaps the most famous duel in American history was the duel between Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr, which occurred July 11th in 1804. Burr challenged Hamilton to a duel using pistols after a letter published in the Albany Register referred to Burr as despicable. This was after he lost both the presidential election in 1800 and the New York governor's race of 1804. After killing Hamilton in the duel, Burr was indicted for murder. He was acquitted years later, but never saw success in politics. He died bankrupt at a Staten Island boarding house in 1836. A lesser-known duel in Texas history may be the one that occurred in November of 1897 in Waco. Waco Judge George Bruce Gerald challenged Waco Times-Herald editor James Harris to a duel. The conflict occurred over an article the judge had written supporting the controversial views of William Cowper Braun, who was against Baptist and the Baylor University. When Harris and his brother arrived at the corner of Austin Avenue and 4th Street in Waco, both Harris brothers were killed. The judge, who lost his left arm as a result of the duel, went on to be re-elected in 1900. The community of Gerald, Texas, in northeastern McLennan County, was named in his honor. Incidentally, due to the outspoken opinions of Braun, was himself killed in Waco a year later, shot in the back by Tom Davis, a father of a Baylor University student. Before Braun fell, he got off 6 shots and hit Davis, wounding other bystanders in the process. Both men passed away the next day. So circling back to the duel between Felix Huston and Albert Johnston, it all started on January 31st in 1837. Republic of Texas President Sam Houston decided to replace Brigadier General Felix Huston with Brigadier General Albert Sidney Johnston as commander of the Texas Army. This decision implied that President Houston no longer trusted General Houston's leadership. In fact, since Houston appointed Felix Huston on October 1836 as Junior Brigadier General and temporary Commander-in-Chief over the 2,000-man Texas Army, they had become unruly, disorganized, and undisciplined. The insulted General Huston challenged General Johnston to a duel using pistols. The duel resulted in Johnston being shot through the right hip, a wound that prevented him from taking immediate command. Felix Huston went on to participate at the Battle of Plum Creek in 1840. He died in 1857 at Natchez, Mississippi. He was remembered by historian Eugene C. Barker as a typical military adventurer whose actual personal experience in Texas was more extemporaneous than effective. Nevertheless, Barker writes, Huston was a true friend of Texas. Albert Sidney Johnston was appointed Secretary of War for the Republic of Texas by President Lamar in 1838. In December of 1839, he led an expedition against the Cherokee Indians in East Texas. He fought in the Mexican War and took command of a troop of Confederate Army soldiers during the Civil War. He was killed at the Battle of Shiloh on April 6, 1862. During my research, I found that it was suggested that the earlier wound to Johnston's hip in the duel with Huston had caused severe nerve damage. And so when he was wounded at Shiloh, he didn't immediately recognize the extent of the injury because of this nerve damage. As a result, he didn't make it in time to get medical care. His final resting place is at the Texas State Cemetery in Austin. A sculpture dedicated to his memory was erected there in 1905. An historic marker memorializing the location of the infamous duel was erected in 1936 near the town of Edna in Jackson County. Unfortunately, it is located on private property. Please access the links in the description below for more information about the history of dueling, including detailed information about the Code Duello, which are the rules for dueling that were developed by the Irish in 1777. Thank you for watching. Take care.